Hello, everyone. I'm Tanya Rivero. Thank you for joining us. Tennessee Republican Senator Lamar Alexander says he will vote to deny additional witnesses to testify in the Senate impeachment trial of President Trump. On the flip side, Maine's Republican Senator Susan Collins and Utah Republican Senator Mitt Romney say they will vote in favor of witnesses. In a statement late Thursday, the retiring Alexander said he does not need to hear from witnesses because the House managers have already proven President Trump did something inappropriate. But he added he believes the president's actions do not rise to the level of impeachment. Meanwhile, the veteran Collins says she believes hearing from witnesses would give each side the opportunity to make a better case, and that it is, quote, the most sensible way to move forward. As for the freshman Senator Romney, our CBS News Capitol Hill team has learned he wants to hear from former National Security Advisor John Bolton and that he will vote for the motion. Republican Lisa Murkowski of Alaska is now the only remaining on-the-fence Republican whose vote on the issue could dictate how the trial proceeds. She is expected to announce her decision Friday. I spoke with our panel about this earlier before we got word of Senator Romney's decision. But Senators Murkowski and Romney say they will make their announcement tomorrow on whether to vote for more witnesses or any witnesses at all. And Senator Alexander says that he will vote not to have witnesses. So there you have it. Can we do the math, Molly?
Well, I was never very good at math, but you know, it seems like if Romney and Murkowski decide to vote to move on to that question of witnesses, we would have a tie vote. And, you know, based on the rules of procedure in
Chief
practice,
Justice Roberts would have to.
Well, he could weigh in. That's the thing. He could, and he doesn't have to. If he doesn't weigh in and he decides to use that discretion, then the motion fails.
It fails.
It fails.
If there's a tie vote,
50-50,
it fails. Okay.
tie vote fails.
Okay.
Because normally in those circumstances, the vice president is the president of the Senate, would be presiding over the chamber, and that individual casts the tie-breaking vote. But in this case, it's an impeachment trial of his boss, you know, and you know, a bit of a conflict of interest there. So that's one of the reasons why you have the Chief Justice presiding over the proceedings. And again, you know, Chief Justice Roberts has used his discretion several times.
He has.
But whether he would weigh in on this, that's another question.
Jessica, what is your take on, you know, Chief Justice Roberts, seeing how he's performed thus far in the trial? Do you think he is likely to make a, you know, sort of tie-breaking ruling on this?
I don't. So his former boss and mentor, Chief Justice Rehnquist, who presided over the Clinton trial, famously said, I saw it as my role to do nothing, and I did it extremely well. And I think that that's essentially what Chief Justice John Roberts, that's the model that he's followed, in the sense that he could have decided to take a much more active role. He could have decided to say to some of the attorneys when they were, frankly, mischaracterizing the facts, mischaracterizing the law, he could have decided to jump in. Really, the only time he's put his thumb on the scale at all that I can remember, I think the first day he said, let's all remember to mind our P's and Q's. Today, he decided not to read one of the questions that we talked about from Senator Rand Paul, right, because potentially that would demonstrate the identity of the whistleblower. But no, I think he is so motivated not to take an active role and not to take what would be largely seen as a political role. I mean, this is why everybody talks about, it's almost like a Hallmark card to talk about Chief Justice John Roberts and then say equals institutionalist, because he doesn't want it to look like his job is in any way similar to the job of either of the political branches.
You know, it's interesting, Molly, talking to Jessica about right, Chief Justice Roberts, you know, and Pelosi talking about his role today. It's sort of the first time we've heard a lot from Pelosi during these proceedings. She's been sort of quiet over the past few days.
Well, I think that she's been active behind the scenes. I mean, Paul Kane, a stellar congressional reporter for the Washington Post. I've covered Congress for a long time, and he was there before I was, and he knows these players in and out. And he was reporting that, or he is reporting that privately, Nancy Pelosi has been checking in on a daily basis with Adam Schiff, finding, you know, working on what that day's message would be, the arguments, the takeaway, kind of who should be making which arguments, who needs to, you know, get some more face time. and I think that that's appropriate. But keep in mind, the House is also doing business. And actually, last week they were gone, and she was leading. She led a congressional delegation overseas to recognize the 75th anniversary of Auschwitz, and so she's been busy behind the scenes. I don't think that she saw this as her role. Step back, let the House managers do their job, and weigh in towards the end.
Sort of interesting at the very end, the last answer that was given by Jerry Nadler. You saw Adam Schiff got up too. There was sort of some, who was going to take the podium there?
Well, here's the thing. When I heard that question with Lamar Alexander, the one that said, "Isn't it true that loaded?" Essentially, all bets were off. The Democrats you kind of figure, okay, we lost him. I'm getting up. I'm making my case. I don't care. Right. I don't have to play nice right now. I don't have to appease these people. And Jerry Nadler didn't.
He was not making nice. That's for sure. So we do know that Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer suggested today that Democrats might try to slow down the process.
Sure.
There was some sort of veiled reference to that, but without too much detail as to what he was talking about. Can you give us any insight?
Sure. Okay. So after the Senate takes this vote, tomorrow they'll have both sides will have 2 hours apiece essentially to make their closing arguments and ostensibly argue for witnesses. The vote will be taken probably around 5, 6 o'clock. That'll fail. But then Mitch McConnell still needs to come up with a plan to how do we get to the vote to, on the actual articles. What's the timing on that? And so he will likely offer another mini rules of the road package, at which point Chuck Schumer, can offer all sorts of amendments to that package. And what he can do is he can move to, move an amendment that, say, Chris Van Hollen was pushing, that Justice Roberts should weigh in the case of a tie. All those kind of procedural motions and amendments that will not pass likely will not pass the chamber. But it will keep the Senate in session because Chuck Schumer says essentially, no, we're going to drag this thing out as long as we can.
I now have Senator Alexander's statement in hand, and it speaks directly to the question that he asked, that he was part of asking. He says, I've worked with other senators to make sure that we have the right to ask for more documents and witnesses, but there is no need for more evidence to prove something that has already been proven and that does not meet the United States Constitution's high bar for an impeachable offense.
Well, there you go.
There you have it.
There you have it.
It's already been proven, and it's not impeachable.
There you have it. And Tennessee gets a new bridge. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, but I take him at his word.
Yeah.
Lamar Alexander is known as one of the most bipartisan senators in the chamber. This is a man who had been governor of Tennessee, ran for president, the GOP nomination for president twice, had been Secretary of Education, and, is well respected up on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, and it says that, he certainly, I think, considered the question carefully. But when we heard that question asked, I think we had an inkling that his mind had been made up.
There was sort of like a collective, ooh, you could hear.
You could hear. So, Kathryn, we are speaking a lot about moderate Republicans who are on the fence or not on the fence anymore about witnesses. But when it comes to an acquittal, are there any Democrats that the White House is courting?
Sure. Well, I think a couple of Democrats to watch, not for the vote for witnesses and documents. We really do expect Democrats to pretty much stick together on that. But on the acquittal vote, I think it's still more likely that Democrats do stick together. But a couple senators to watch, I would say, are Joe Manchin from West Virginia, who has been noncommittal really on where he might stand. Dianne Feinstein from California has told the Los Angeles Times earlier this week, basically, hey, it's been my position all along that the voters should have the ability to decide what happens moving forward. And I believe it was, I would have to take another look, there was one more Democrat, and if any of my fellow panelists can remember, I think it might have been Peters, who asked a question along with some Republicans earlier this evening, joining in on the question that was brought up earlier of, well, even if Bolton were to testify, would that really matter? Would that really make any difference? Isn't what the president did still not impeachable. So, it's just going to be really interesting to watch. But I think there's a lot of confidence among Democrats right now that, among Republicans, that the president is going to be acquitted. Not a lot of confidence from Democrats on that. I would say it would be utterly shocking. One of the most surprising things we've ever witnessed in American history if the president were not acquitted.
I do want to say, if you read Senator Alexander's statement, a little bit more closely, which we're just reading it live on the air as we speak right now, he does say it was inappropriate for the president to ask a foreign leader to investigate his political opponent and to withhold United States aid to encourage that investigation. But the Constitution does not give the Senate the power to remove the president from office and ban him from this year's ballot simply for actions that are inappropriate.
Right. And that the fact that he included that in his statement
is a slight slap on the wrist.
It is. And what'll be interesting to see in the days to come is how, once Donald Trump makes it through this whole process and is likely acquitted, how he will respond to comments like this by senators who could have essentially dragged this thing out even longer and called for witnesses. Was there some sort of deal struck? But listen, okay, I'm not going to vote for the witnesses, but I am going to say it's inappropriate, and you better not come after me.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Because Donald Trump has a way of getting those digs in, and he has these steadfast followers who direct their frustration at the individual that Donald Trump directs frustration at.
Speaking of the power of the president to sort of keep his soldiers in line, does this speak a little bit to McConnell's weakness that he now has one senator who's come out and said she will vote in favor of witnesses? We have one senator saying no, one senator saying yes, two saying we haven't yet decided.
Well, let's remember who that senator is. Susan Collins, who took a major risk in voting for Brett Kavanaugh last go around. The moment she voted for Brett Kavanaugh, thousands of dollars started going into Maine to fuel an opponent for her run this year to remain the U.S. Senator from Maine. And at that time, McConnell came out and he basically said, we will take care of Susan Collins. So frankly, the fact that McConnell is not losing 4, that's very important. He can afford to lose 2. And Susan Collins, representing a blue state with a lot of money going into her state, attacking her and trying to take her down based on a vote she stuck her neck out for the president, I think that gives her a little bit of leeway.
So you're saying that they probably were expecting this from Senator Collins?
I have a feeling they were probably expecting it. And it would have been politically detrimental to her re-election campaign. And Mitch McConnell's future as the majority leader, if she's not reelected.
Because she's not likely to lose that seat to a Republican.
Exactly. And he needs Republicans in the majority so he can keep his nice office, with a view down the mall towards the Lincoln Memorial. And essentially, that's a political calculation you have to take.
Right. All right. Well, Molly Hooper, Jessica Levinson, Kathryn Watson, thanks to all of you. Really appreciate you joining us this evening. And a reminder that you can keep up with the latest developments in the impeachment anytime by visiting our live blog. Just head to cbsnews.com/impeachment.